Go ahead, open a new tab, type her name into Google. Shireen Kiash, nothing, right? Maybe a scorecard? A line? Possibly a name in a list. That's about it. That is the entire digital footprint of a woman who represented India not in one sport, not in two, but in three: basketball, cricket, and hockey. This is her story. Now, I want to zoom out for a second because Shireen is one of just so many such stories I'd be talking about. The Fire Burns Blue, the book where I found her, is a history of Indian women's cricket. Karunya Keshav and Siddhanta Patnaik, the authors, spent 7 years researching it. Goes without saying, for all of you interested in knowing more about the people that made the sport what it is in the Indian subcontinent, do yourselves a favor and check the book at the earliest. Back to Shireen. Calcutta in the 1950s and 60s was a city of maidans, vast open grounds where sport lived and breathed in the open air. Football, cricket, athletics. If you had talent and a pair of legs, you found your way to one of those grounds. Shireen grew up in the Parsi community of Calcutta, one that was tight-knit, culturally rich, and with deep roots in the Indian sport. Importantly, one that genuinely believed their daughters deserved to play. She used to lie on her bed at night, practicing throwing and catching. First with her right hand, then with her left, over and over. She was determined to be ambidextrous, just so that she could dribble. The boys in her neighborhood quickly learned not to challenge her. She was better than them at most things, and she had zero patience for anyone who forgot that. When the first ever Indian women's cricket team was put together to face an Australian under-25 side in 1975, Shireen was in it. She made 21 runs in the first innings of that historic match, India's debut on the international stage. There's just one photograph that captures this moment. The Indian and Australian teams standing with the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi before their match in Delhi. Look carefully at the back row. Standing behind Sudha Shah, between Fauziya Khalili and Shanta Rangaswamy, that tall woman with the earnest face, that's Shireen. One photograph is almost everything that exists of her sporting life in the public record. But the people who played alongside her, they remember. When the crowd at a match got unruly, it was Shireen who stepped to the fore. She didn't call for security. She didn't step back. She raised her hockey stick and dared anyone to come closer. When some man on the street got too far forward with one of her teammates, Shireen chased him down the road and pulled him off his bicycle. She was the person you wanted next to you, in sport and in life. Aparna Ghosh, who herself played basketball for India and went on to receive some of the country's highest sporting honours, credits Shireen with giving her her first pair of Nike shoes. Back then, a pair of genuine Nikes was more than footwear. It was status, it was aspiration, it was belonging to something larger than yourself. And then there was Khushru too. In 1975, the same year India played their first international cricket match, Shireen got married to a fellow sports person, a man who understood what it meant to be driven by the need to compete. Almost immediately after the wedding, she had to leave for a national tournament. So the whole family came to the station to see her off. The train started to move. At the very last second, Khushru looked at the train pulling away and thought, no. He grabbed whatever cash he had in his pocket and he jumped on the moving train. Not to stop her from going, not to bring her back, just to travel with her, just to be there. Marriage didn't slow Shireen down, not even slightly. She later became an Eastern Railway employee, a common path for women cricketers of that era, as railways were one of the few institutions that gave female athletes actual jobs and some measure of stability. She practiced basketball at the railway courts. Her children would sit on the sidelines and watch as the canteen wala brought them toast with butter and sugar. At some point, the Kiash family migrated to Australia. And here is where it gets almost absurd in the best possible way. Shireen was in her 40s. Most people at that stage would be content to watch sport from the stands. Shireen decided to take up netball. Her knees weren't great. It was hard on them. She knew that and played anyway. Her car boot, even in Australia, always had a cricket bat in it. Along with that, a football and basketball too. If there was an opportunity to organize a sporting event, she organized one. Then came the cancer. It started in the breast, as it sometimes does. It didn't stay there. It spread and eventually reached her brain. Before she started chemotherapy, before the treatment, before even the fight began, she had one condition. One thing she needed to do first. She wanted to see the Sydney 2000 Olympics. So she went. She watched. She saw the best athletes in the world do what they were born to do, and then she started her treatment. The doctor gave her 6 weeks to live in 2001. She lived 5 more years until 2006. She sat in a wheelchair at the end and she cracked jokes. She told people that maybe she should compete in the Paralympics. She would add a 4th sport to her India tally that way. Shireen unfortunately had already passed by the time Karunya and Siddhanta got down to researching for the book. But they managed to speak to her daughter Karni's. And Karni said something that has stayed with me since I read it. If she was born in any other country, my mum would have been famous. Statistics were lost, scorecards were incomplete, matches that were played as tests were later reclassified as unofficial, and decades of runs and wickets were simply struck from the books. Shireen doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. If you search for her, you get almost nothing. And yet she stood in that photograph with Indira Gandhi. She played at Eden Gardens when 35,000 people showed up. She was there at the very beginning. So what do we do with a story like Shireen's? I think we tell it as many times as we can, as many times as it takes. Shireen Kiash never had a strategy. She just had that feeling in her chest that told her to keep going. And she did, in 3 sports, in 2 countries, for 50 plus years. Go ahead and search her name. It still won't return much. But now, you know. Once again, if you want to read more such stories like Shireen's, The Fire Burns Blue by Karunya Keshav and Siddhanta Patnaik is where you start. Hit subscribe if these are the kind of stories you want to hear more of. And please, please, please do not forget to like and share it with like-minded folks too. Until then, see you next time.